Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Just checking if the deck's going to come up. There you go. Great, great. So this is going to be a sort of an informal talk on university, a 10-minute chat on your university life and your potential next steps. My name is Rahman. I'm 22 years old. I'm in my final 3 to 4 months of university. I was lucky enough to have a placement at IBM, where I worked with clients like Boots, GSK, and the Scottish Government, which I got through university, and I'm just going to be discussing your potential options going forward. So the agenda for today is obviously the transition from school to university, what the actual difference is between the two, because I think that's a big conversation. Do I actually want to go to university? Do I do a degree apprenticeship? Do I do I go into manual labor? The academic breakdown of university, how does that differ from school again? Money and budgeting, I think that's something that goes unheard of. We don't really hear about it, the differences. And I think it's a big step for the youth to go into university and first handle, money that they're given, large amounts of money, in fact. Career prep and post-university. And I've written Q&A, but I would like you to write some questions down for the ending session. So transition from school to university. I think in school, it's evident that the work style is very high volume and low depth. Comparatively to university, the work style is very lower volume and then high intensity. At school, you're working with maybe 10 subjects sometimes, then you're going to 3, 4, 5 subjects sometimes. In your A-levels, your college studies. So I think there's a very big difference when you go to university and you're really refining what you're trying to learn about and the industry you're trying to go in. That's something to keep in mind when you're choosing your subjects. Schedule, I think school is very, this is going to be an ongoing theme, the autonomy you have in university. It's very structured at school, obviously starts at 9, ends at 3. At university, it's a very self-managed system. It's very, I want to go to the library at 2 o'clock, I'm going to go to the lecture at 1 o'clock perhaps. I think that's something that also has to come to mind. And that kind of links in with the motivation. The motivation at school, the teachers chase you. The teachers know who's in red, who's in amber, and who's in green. At university, you don't get that same catering for. At university, it's very open. You're on your own. You know what you need to do to get a first. You know how much you need to study in order to do that. And then very simply at the end, I've written something about the goal for school is completion a lot of the time, or the goal for A-levels is completion. Going on to the next step of, is it an apprenticeship? Is it going to university, the traditional route? I think the goal for university is to produce work which is to a publishable standard, perhaps going into being an industry expert or whatever you're doing. On to the next slide. Now, the academic breakdown of university, I've sort of split it into 2 kind of sections, but I'm going to go into the literal day in, day out, what university is like. So depending on the university you go to and the subject you picked, for example, myself, I'm doing business management. I have 4 modules per semester. That's 1 lecture, 1 seminar, and a seminar is an in-depth discussion on your specific subject matter. This is where you're really able to quiz your lecturer, talk to your lecturer and your classmates about what you're doing, and a tutorial is very practical on your subject. This may count your end, sort of your end goal and maybe your overall grade. And then I think something else to discuss with university is acting Amir Saab has joined us. So something I was discussing was around the 9-to-5 mindset and academic survival. I think you have to treat university almost like a job. You go in the morning, you do your studies, you go home. I think unfortunately with university, and this is something you may want to consider if you are going to uni or it's sort of a choice for you. Is that for me? Is that for me to wake up early and then come home late? Is it for me to treat it like a job? If you treat it like a full-time job, you're going to do well. You're going to succeed. If you treat it like a part-time job, you're going to do half as well. I think something I like to discuss is the environment, and I'm not sure if there are any Amur Talibat secretaries, but university is really what you make it, right? You have these societies, you have the clubs, you have AMSA groups. This is really where you can meet with external people or people you don't know and reconnect with maybe even other Ahmadis at university. Something I took interest in was the consulting society. Some people might take interest in the English society. Depends on your interest, but this is really what sets you apart when it comes to employability, and this is something we're going to get into later in the presentation. I think money and budgeting, I think this is something that goes under the radar, and there's a lot of sort of stigma with university. How can I manage having a university degree, not having money, perhaps all that kind of talk. I think something that is important for the parents to know is that children should apply for a maintenance loan. A maintenance loan is a financial support which is given to university students to really cover everyday living costs, whilst they're studying, such as accommodation, food, travel, and study materials. It really allows students to get on with their education without having to worry about having a part-time job on the side. I think 90 to 95% of students actually apply for this, and this is something I wouldn't disregard. And I've written 6 words around, or 6 phrases perhaps, around the money and budgeting slide. You know, uni days, essentials, budgeting, rainy day, limits, and then tracking. I've written that because I think this is a time, as I said earlier, this is where you have to really sit with your children, or you yourself have to plan how much I'm going to spend a month, how much money I need going forward, and what I'm going to do that money and what I'm going to, you know, put it towards. And something I've also written is essentials. Know what is needed at a specific time. But this is something you can choose to do within your own times. And then onto my penultimate slide, but final slide, before the Q&A slide, career prep and post-university. I think this is really, when it comes to employability, what you need to know. So you need to have the best CV. You need to know and have the best experience. You need to be the best candidate when it comes to going for a job, perhaps after you've graduated. Skills development, you know, I think us as Ahmadis, we always strive to be the best, the cream of the crop, especially if you are Waqf. It's about going and doing those external courses, those, you know, perhaps IBM courses or Deloitte courses or whatever you're trying to go into, and really enhance the knowledge you have. Staying tech informed, I'm pretty sure we have a tech discussion on AI later. So staying tech informed is really important, and how technology is going to impact your industry. How is AI influencing law, perhaps? How is AI influencing being a doctor, perhaps? The health industry, consulting. It's really important to know about that. And then professionalism ties in with mannerisms and etiquettes in the workplace. I think that's something that goes underplayed. A lot of the time, fortunately for the people who do go to private school, they learn how to, you know, perhaps behave in a professional environment. A lot of people who didn't and have never been in those environments don't know how to. Onto networking, you're in the right place, you're networking with individuals, you're getting their LinkedIns, and you're meeting people who are in specific industries. And then placement year, this is something I did, and this is a real way of sort of separating yourself from the rest of the cohort or the people you're competing with. I think this is a year you take out of university to really go and work in an organization. Aside from that, the last point I'm going to make is on LinkedIn's and social media. I don't usually encourage, you know, youngsters to go on social media, but I think one thing they should do is create a LinkedIn and connect with other Ahmadi professionals, people they know in industry, their peers, their classmates, you know, their lecturers. This is really how you can push yourself to apply for good jobs post-university. So I hope this has sort of covered, you know, what university is, taking you from the beginning to the end when you're looking for a job. Jazakallah.